Welcome to Collider Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm your host, Ashley Mova, and this is the Daily Show where we give you all the latest news from the world of movies, plus some insight into what it all means. Leading off the show today is John Campea.
Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, coming to you from right here at the Collider Video Studios here in Burbank, California. And I'm still kind of emotionally recovering from last night's episode of Walking Dead.
Also here, host of Jedi Council, Kristian Harloff.
I didn't get a chance to share my thoughts on an episode, but man, what a great episode of television. One of my favorite episodes of Walking Dead ever.
Also here, Mark Ellis.
So here's what happened. No, we're not going to do that, but it's a really good episode. I think it was worth the wait for this season coming back.
All right, guys, some really big things have gone on and have happened in the world of movie news since Friday's movie talk. So, Ashley, get us kicked off.
Deadline reports that after a series of creative differences between Deadpool director Tim Miller and star Ryan Reynolds, Miller has exited Deadpool 2. Studio insiders for the outlet say the exit was over mutual creative differences and ended amicably. However, according to The Wrap, a casting issue came to a head over the possible booking of Kyle Chandler as Cable, with Miller wanting the Bloodline actor and Ryan Reynolds opting for someone else. The movie is still set for an unknown 2018 release. John, thoughts on Tim Miller's exit from Deadpool 2?
Surprising. Really, really surprising. Because, you know, there's something they say in sports and we say it in movies too. Winning cures everything. And when you're winning, everybody just seems to get along and everybody seems to be on the same page when you're winning. Deadpool made almost $800 million. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it is the highest grossing R-rated film of all time. Everybody should be getting along and giving each other sponge baths. I mean, this is great stuff that's happening. But what they have, apparently, from what we're reading in both, I think, Variety, Hollywood Reporter, is saying that the casting of Kyle Chandler, apparently that wasn't a finalized thing, but that was true. That's who the director's looking at. The story I'm reading is that Tim wanted to take Deadpool now. They did the comedy. Now he wanted to take it a little bit more stylized. He wanted to take it a little bit more dramatic, if you will. We were joking around pre-show. I said maybe Tim saw Captain America Civil War and thought that's what we need to become. And clearly, you know, you've got Ryan Reynolds who's like, no, that's not what Deadpool is. So that's the reports at any rate, that Tim has wanted to go a little bit more in a different direction. Whereas Ryan, as the producer of the film, is saying, no, this is what Deadpool is and this is what made it successful. It's really concerning because the way, even if they had different philosophies on the original film, the way they worked together produced gold. It produced absolute gold. So look, we'll get more into this in a bit. There are other directors out there who can step in and do this. The screenwriters are still the same. Ryan Reynolds is still there. He's still the producer. It's still the same studio. But I cannot help but feel a little bit anxious about this as a fan of Deadpool. But on the surface, and I'm sure there are a million details that we do not know, okay? But just on the surface, seeing the differences between where Tim wanted to go and where Ryan wants to go, I gotta say, I think you stick with Ryan's way because it worked, and that's what I'm looking forward to seeing in the next movie. So I don't know, Kristian, you heard about all this. What do you make of this?
Listen, it's mixed because I think that it's very easy to hear this and go, oh, it's just a superstar actor who's just, you know, getting all this money now and feels like he can call the shots and let's just take it out on Ryan Reynolds. I don't know, because if you look at it, first of all, the guy has been championing Deadpool for a very long time, certainly knows the character very well, maybe doesn't think that tone shift is something that he wants to explore, but I love Kyle Chandler. I happen to agree. I don't think Kyle Chandler is the best fit for Cable.
No, I completely agree with you. He's not.
So, you know, you could dress him up and make him look like Cable, and maybe he can. What I've seen of him is acting. I just saw him in Manchester by the Sea. Obviously, I love him in Bloodline, and I think he's a great talent. He doesn't scream Cable to me. He just doesn't. There's other actors out there, I think, and maybe that's the same way that Ryan Reynolds felt. There was reports that they haven't spoken for a while since even the first movie, but they still have the same screenwriters. I mean, I know we're going to go into it, but the name that I would like to throw out that I think that Fox should reach out to immediately if they haven't already, it makes the most sense, is Matthew Vaughn. Mm-hmm. I mean, Matthew Vaughn knows the X-Men family really well. Has done Mutants. The guy just did a rated R comic book movie with Kingsman. He is the perfect choice to take over, and I think that if you bring on Matthew Vaughn, people are like, okay, we're okay. Tim Miller leaving, it was hard, but this is a good replacement. You got to get somebody that knows the universe, that can understand what and has to be able to vibe with Reynolds, because that is important. Even though I say, the star pushing back, don't take it all on him. You have to make sure that person vibes with him, because this is his project.
It's important to keep in mind here that sometimes big stars on movies will just as a token get a producer credit.
Right. No,
Ryan Reynolds was the legit producer
Totally.
on this thing. He has been the spearhead on this project for years, so he is actually a functioning producer on this thing.
You don't get Deadpool made without Ryan Reynolds.
No, it never happens.
Yeah.
Never happens.
Yeah, he was championing this project from before day one, and so he is instrumental in this going forward, which is why if you have to take sides, you would take Ryan Reynolds' side over Tim Miller's side, but it is really confusing as a fan to be like, wait, why can't everybody behind the scenes be friends? Aren't you guys just made this great thing together? That's not always how it works. Sometimes conflict breeds the best in art, and sometimes you just need to part ways. That's what it seems like in this situation, which leads me to believe that this is not just about one casting decision. As important as Cable's going to be in Deadpool 2, you got to think there's some other things that are rooted in there, which is why they just simply couldn't work together anymore. As far as your point, Kristian, I love the idea of Matthew Vaughn doing a lot of movies, but this one in particular, because of what he was able to do in Kingsman with comedy and the stylized action, he'd be a perfect fit for Deadpool 2. We are going to be worried about this, though, until we do get a named director
Definitely.
attached to it. So as soon as we can plug somebody else in there, we can get excited about Deadpool 2 again. But in the meantime, it does make me a little nervous.
I could see a Guy Ritchie directing a Deadpool 2 as well.
Sure.
Just that kind of frantic kind of humor, the same thing. Here's the thing. Kyle Chandler, the idea of Kyle Chandler playing Cable doesn't bother me, because we don't know what Cable they have envisioned. Kyle Chandler may be the perfect actor for that Cable vision.
Right.
Cable vision?
Cable vision,
Anyway,
nice.
where I get concerned as a fan is, I don't think I want a Cable that Kyle Chandler is the perfect actor to play. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, as a fan,
You want a Stephen Lang type Cable.
I want a Stephen Lang type Cable. I mean, I do. And it doesn't have to be Stephen Lang, but I
Right.
want that type
Right.
of Cable. And it just feels to me that Tim probably has a really cool vision. For now, we've done the jokey, fun, irreverent Deadpool. Now let's go kind of in a different direction. And it's probably a really cool idea. But like I said, I just find myself having to side with Ryan Reynolds on this. Again, we don't know all the details, so a lot of this is based on speculation. But I really kind of feel like the way to go on this is to kind of stick with Ryan Reynolds' version of this. I mean, I don't know, but Mark, let me ask you this question. If they did start producing a new Deadpool and we did find out it was going to be a little bit more serious in tone, I'm sure it wouldn't be The Dark Knight. I mean, but a little bit more serious in tone, would that be intriguing to you, or would you not be interested?
I got to have some jokes in the Deadpool, too. I mean, I'm going to need that vibe in there. And I don't think that even if they want to go darker with the storyline or with Cable, if he doesn't have the adept sense of humor that Deadpool does, you still need to have the Deadpool character. He can be in a bleaker world than what he was in the first one, but you do need Deadpool being what he was in the first film.
I don't think Tim Miller was going to take the humor out of it. I think he was just going to add some more circumstance to it, because if you look at the first movie, it's as much a comedy as it is a superhero movie, but maybe he wanted to tone back a little bit. But if you strip the comedy out, you're pretty much doing what they did in Wolverine Origins and sticking and cutting his mouth out. You don't put Ryan Reynolds in a movie and don't have him do comedy, especially as Deadpool. So I don't think that, and to be fair to Tim Miller, I bet you if you dove deep into it, that's not what he was saying. And I'd love to actually hear more of his story when he's able to talk about it more, because this is a story that you could easily flip. And the three of us could be like, whoa, we heard these details now. Maybe we're more on Miller's side. So I don't want to just, because it shouldn't be a popularity contest because Ryan Reynolds is the name. It's just we know that he, as a producer, has been championing it for so long. And hearing the Cable argument, you seem to side for him right now, but more details will come.
Every time Ryan Reynolds tweets, I feel like it's a Deadpool tweet. So I just feel like he has such a lock on that character that he's the guy I trust right now.
One other thing is important to keep in mind here, too, that just because they part ways on a creative project doesn't mean that Ryan Reynolds and Tim Miller don't like each other. It just means, look, we've got two different versions for the movie. And honestly, it's always going to be the producer's vision. If the producer wants to go one way or the director wants to go another, unless the director's last name happens to be Scorsese or Nolan or Spielberg, it's going to go the way of the producer. And, you can't lose Ryan Reynolds on this. Now, there is a petition that got started online.
Of course there is.
Of course there is. By the way, in the world of movies, petitions are the most stupid things. Anyway, there is a petition that has started online of fans demanding that Quentin Tarantino direct Deadpool 2.
Yeah.
I love Quentin Tarantino. He's amazing. He's fantastic. He would be a horrible fit for Deadpool 2. It is not a movie he would be interested in directing.
And you think Ryan Reynolds is going to talk about two guys that are going to want creative control? Ryan Reynolds is not going to get creative control over Tarantino, and vice versa. It
would be a
work.
mess.
It's a mess.
It's actually, I think it's somewhat of a talent if a director can come into a project that already has a lot of steam going and be able to not rock the boat too much, like what Peyton Reed did with Ant-Man. You know, he came in there and he helped write the ship, but it wasn't his movie as it would have been a Tarantino movie. I love the idea of Tarantino taking a Deadpool kind of thing and making a film out of it, just not for Deadpool 2.
Yeah, I just cannot see Quentin Tarantino even looking at Deadpool and thinking he loves Deadpool. He said that before, but it's not the type of movie that he would want to direct. It's not in his wheelhouse.
What movie has he done that's not one of his? What movie
exactly.
He
He doesn't just pick up other people's properties and do it.
He writes the movies. They're all original Quentin Tarantino movies. He doesn't do this. He's been asked for comic movies, Star Wars stuff. It's not something that.
Okay,
he wants
how
to do.
about we get Mel Gibson to come in and play Cable and then also direct the movie?
Intriguing. All right, what's next?
Lucasfilm has officially announced that Donald Glover has been cast as young Lando Calrissian in the still untitled anthology Star Wars film about Han Solo. Helmed by directors Phil Lord and Chris Miller, Glover is the first actor to officially join Alden Ehrenreich's solo character, which will now bring the two iconic Star Wars characters back to the big screen. The young Han Solo movie is set for a May 25th, 2018 release date. Kristian, what do you think about the casting of Donald Glover as Lando?
I think that I was sitting on Jedi Council and we were talking about Lando, and people said, well, who do you think should play Lando? I said, I think Donald Glover. And people said, everyone on the council said he's too old, can't do it. Ha! I think Donald Glover is the perfect choice to play Lando Calrissian. I think that he has shown in both Atlanta and Magic Mike 2. Oh, wait, you saw Magic Mike 2? Yeah, I review movies. The movie itself, I think he was really good in that. I think that he is a guy, he's an upcoming talent that really can prove that he has. And The Martian's another movie too.
I liked him very much in The Martian.
There are comedic elements in that movie for sure, but still dramatic role. I think that this guy is going to be great as Lando. I think he, even in that Photoshop there that Ray did, which is amazing, I think that he's got the look. I think that it's going to be interesting. The question is, what is his chemistry going to be like with Han? Can he pull it off with Alden? If they screen tested, if it worked, then yes, because I assume in this film, he's going to have the Falcon. The Falcon will be his until the end of the movie, is what I would assume. So I love it. I think Donald Glover is a perfect casting choice.
What do you think, Mark?
Well, I think that I must have not been on Jedi Council that week. I must have been out doing the yuck somewhere in the middle of nowhere, because I would have agreed with you. I think Donald Glover is a great choice for this, and this actually is one of the things where I think, John, I've been more on your side of the Han Solo movie where, yeah, we're going to be there opening night and be very excited, probably going to go white tux for it, but it's not the most exciting move that they could have made doing a young Han Solo movie, because who do you get to play young Han Solo? And I think that Alden could do a great job. But seeing this and then thinking about the chemistry between a younger Han Solo and a younger Lando Calrissian kind of gets me really excited. This might have been the news that won me over to be like, you know what? This is a movie that should be made in the timeline when it's coming out. This is great news.
All right, just a little fact-checking, history revisionist. When you did bring up Donald Glover's thing and we said too old, then because we all thought he was in his early 40s, and then on the show we looked up saying, oh wait, he's only 33. Okay, he's not too
Who thought he was
old.
in his early 40s? Really?
Me and Tiff, yeah, we thought he was either like late 30s or early 40s, and then when we looked up his age, oh wait a minute, he's only 33. Geez, okay, he'd be the right age. I still wish, I said this before, and I'll stick by this. I still wish. I think it's too early for Lando. I mean, when you say young Han Solo, like, is he, or has he already taken possession of the Millennium Falcon? Are we going to see the transfer of the Falcon in this one? I mean, I don't know. If, though, you are going to say, and I think I said this on Jedi Council as well, I think, that if you are going to have Lando, and I would rather them not use Lando yet.
Yondu would be funny.
Yondu would be funny. I would rather them not use Lando quite yet. But if you are going to use him in this movie, this is a fine casting choice. I think he's going to do really well on it. I am very curious. I would love, everybody is ringing Billy D. Williams' phone right now to get a comment, because Billy D. put out some strong words when the rumor first came out.
So who is Donald Glover?
Who's Donald Glover?
I don't know who that is.
No one else should be, and basically said no one else should be playing Lando but me. I mean, basically that's what he said. So a lot of people are ringing him up right now to try to get a comment, and Lucasfilm is probably also ringing him up to give him a script and say, hey, we're going to keep using you as a voice in Rebels, buddy, to see how that all turns out. But I mean, look, I'll be honest with you. The casting, while I think it's a good fit, it doesn't make me any more excited for a Han Solo movie because I'm still in that place. I don't think the Han Solo movie is the right movie to do, but it's a Star Wars movie, so I'm going to be there in tux opening night, very excited. I do wish they were doing something else, though.
It's going to be so cool to see that game of Sabak, I believe is what they were playing, that Lando lost in Millennium Falcon 2 Han, and they could do that like Casino Royale. It's like this card game that gets really intense, and Han wins the Millennium Falcon. I think that will happen in the actual movie.
It would be interesting to find out if they actually want to put in a little twist. We found out Han actually cheats. If he cheats Lando out of the Falcon.
That reeks of Greedo shooting first, John.
That's scoundrel. That's totally in keeping with his character.
Han doesn't need to cheat. Same way with the racing and stuff, too. He wants to win on his own.
He's the scoundrel.
He has cheated, but he's cheated before.
Watch your mouth.
All right, what's next?
It's Monday, which means it's time for the weekend box office report brought to you by our friends at AMC Theaters. Lionsgate's Boo! A Medea Halloween took the #1 spot at the box office, taking in $27.1 million. That was good enough to beat Tom Cruise's return to the Jack Reacher franchise. The second chapter, Never Go Back, debuted in the #2 spot with $23 million. Universal's Ouija Origin of Evil narrowly edged out Warner's The Accountant, taking in $14 million and $60,000 for the #3 spot, while The Accountant made $14 million and $25,000 for the #4 spot. The Girl on the Train held on for the #5 spot, adding $7.2 million to its domestic total of $58.9 million. Mark, thoughts on the weekend box office?
I am very impressed, Medea. I will never doubt you again, because not only did it beat Jack Reacher and a more conventional horror film around Halloween, it did so on 1,000 less screens. I think 1,500 less screens than what Jack Reacher opened with. That's an incredible achievement. I am shocked, and clearly there's a huge market for these movies still out there. I think that Jack Reacher is what we expected to see. I just didn't see anything beating it this particular weekend. And Ouija Origin of Evil, to make $14 million, I think is still impressive, because its budget is maybe $10 million, and it didn't have the best name brand going into it, because a lot of critics did not like the first Ouija movie. So this one, yes, it's opening around Halloween. I think it was the right time to do it. It got a better critical response than I thought it would have. So $14 million, you already made your money back. Well done.
Kristian?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Listen, I'm not shocked at all that another Tyler Perry movie made that type of money. His movies now have become events. They have been, and they do really well. Every single time he opens a movie, they do this, and every single time they open with this number, we all go, whoa, can't believe it made that much money. I think Mark's right. Got to stop doing that. The guy proves that he is making movies to the audience, and they're going and they're checking them out, because I think that, and also putting it right around Halloween, it's smart. It's a smart play, because you're not going up against anything that is going to, as far as you look at Jack Reacher, not a Halloween movie if you're going for the holiday. You're going against Ouija, if you will, totally, but still different, because it's a horror film as opposed to that kind of fun family adventure. So I understand why Tyler Perry's Medea Halloween did what it did. Jack Reacher, if you told me it would have opened up at $25 million, yeah, the first one didn't do amazing box office, and I think they just kind of switched it up by bringing in Ed Zwick, and it's not the best of movies, but Ouija is the one that stands out at doing $14 million. Isn't it Blumhouse again that did this movie?
It's not.
It's a Hasbro property.
It is, okay, but still, going off of that,
it's a great model though, because you make them for real cheap.
But this is the type of stuff. Now listen, I didn't see this movie. But from what I hear, the beginning anyway is a lot better, and then the ending kind of falls apart. But this is the type of thing that I don't like with horror, when they don't like. I like it a lot better what they've been doing lately by putting in talent like a Stephen Lang in a movie, or just bigger talent inside of the horror shell. I like a lot more that they started doing that, and Ouija just seems like the old ways of doing it. But yeah, critics liked it, I thought, right? From the most part.
Critics loved it.
The response was very good for it. Yeah. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not a big fan of Tyler Perry's movies. I'm actually a fan of him as an actor. Like, what he did in Gone Girl was
really
amazing.
Good, yeah.
But, so while I am not a big fan of Tyler's movies, I can't help but cheer for the dude because he's honest. I'm really happy for him because he's honestly one of the nicest, most sincere guys I've ever met in this business. He's such a cool dude. So even I want to like his movies a lot because he's so nice. But they're not for me, and that's fine. But so it's really cool to see it. You know, remember Jack Reacher, before people jump up and down to label Jack Reacher's opening as a failure, don't forget this. It opened with $23 million. That's like a 50% jump over what the first Jack Reacher did. The first Jack Reacher made $15 million on its opening weekend and went on to be pretty profitable. This movie has the exact same budget as the first one. $60 million is what they made Jack Reacher 2 for. Same budget they made the first Jack Reacher for, and that worked out well. I'm also really excited to see that The Accountant only had a 42% drop from week one. I think that speaks a lot to word of mouth about the film. And still, if you have not seen The Accountant, get out and see it because it's a really fun film. So make sure you check that out. So those are the things that pretty much stand out to me the most. All right, folks, we've reached that part of the show now for buy or sell. Here's how this works. In front of her, Ashley's got a few other items in the world of movie news. She's going to run them down. Then those of us at the table are simply going to say whether we buy it or sell it. So Ashley, what do we got?
It appears that Godzilla 2 not only has new writers, but may also have a director as well. On Friday came the news that Legendary and Warner Brothers tapped Krampus screenwriters Michael Dougherty and Zach Shields to pen the script, and now according to Screen Crush, Dougherty is in talks to direct the film as well. Variety notes that Dougherty and Shields might also be the first step towards Legendary creating a new writer's room to handle the shared monsters universe between Godzilla and King Kong. Godzilla 2 is currently dated for March 22nd, 2019. John, buy or sell Michael Dougherty possibly directing Godzilla 2?
I'm going to sell it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not looking for somebody who's got big monster movie experience or anything like that. Wasn't a fan of Krampus. It wasn't completely horrible, but I watched that movie and I'm like, I don't see any of the sensibilities or temperament or flow that I would want to see in a Godzilla movie. This is a very interesting choice. If this works out, this is I'm going to use a very kind word, interesting. It's an interesting choice, one that I would not have guessed would be a direction that would go. But look, for all I know, he walked into the room and he had a magnificent pitch. Right. If he had a great vision, a magnificent pitch, look, just because somebody puts out a first film and it doesn't work out so great, doesn't mean we shouldn't give him another chance. But if you're just going to ask me whether I buy or sell it, on the surface, I'm going to give it its chance when it comes, but for now I got to sell it. What about you, Mark?
Yeah, it's tough for me because I did not think Krampus was great. I thought there was a lot of potential there, and it just didn't live up to it. I'm going to go ahead and give it a buy because I think that what he did story-wise with Krampus and also with something as far back as doing the screenplay for X2, which is a great comic book movie, and then he did Superman Returns, which is like, oh boy, but I'm not sure how much of that was influenced by Bryan Singer on either one of those films, to be honest with you. So I'm going to give it a buy, also because I really want to believe in Godzilla 2, because I love the first one so much. I want to think they can take the template that Gareth set up and then make it new and introduce King Kong gradually into this universe, which is what they're talking about. So as excited as I might be for whoever's directing Godzilla 2, the bigger picture for me is that they're doing this writer's room for this shared universe that Legendary is creating. I think he's the right guy to be running that, and then less so directing, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt right now.
Yeah, I'm going to sell it. I mean, Riley had come into the office, and he was pretty excited because he's a fan of Trick or Treat. Trick or Treat was 2007, and then he got, like 8 years later was his next feature in Krampus, and that didn't deliver.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of Trick or Treat either.
No, so you got 8 years in between Trick or Treat and Krampus, and I didn't love the first Godzilla at all. I thought that the beginning was good, and I thought the end delivered, but everything in between was bad. I think that they need somebody, they should have got a big, high-level director here to come in here and kick ass with this one by putting in a name that you got. I mean, I'm not saying Steven Spielberg, but if you would have announced someone like a big name like that, it comes in and goes, Steven Spielberg doing the next Godzilla. Oh, now I have more excitement for seeing it, because a lot of people didn't like what Godzilla did. There were some people who definitely liked it for sure, but for the majority of it, they need switches, they need changes. I just don't think that this guy has done enough to get me excited for Godzilla 2, which is, I love Godzilla. I really want to see it. Plus the fact that we're going to get Godzilla versus King Kong down the line too. I want the next movie to be incredible. I want it to be, when we have a conversation about sequels that are better than the first, right, I want to talk about Godzilla 2. This isn't the guy that screams off the page for me too, because like I said, Trick or Treat, okay, fine, whatever for the horror fans, but Krampus was okay at best, and that's being generous.
I do like the fact that this is still in keeping with the template that we've seen more recently, where you give somebody who has maybe a cult following or has done some smaller movies that have had some margin of success,
Gareth Edwards himself,
and you give them right. Gareth Edwards is a great point of that. So I like that you're promoting them as opposed to somebody who is. I'm not saying all high-profile directors are going to come in and be Michael Bay and just completely trash a writer's room, but it is nice to see that they're kind of growing talent as opposed to taking somebody else who's going to come in and say, I think Godzilla should be this, and that isn't in line with what Legendary wants. So from a writer's room perspective, I like that it's kind of keeping it in the family.
I don't disagree with that. I think that it is good a lot of times when these smaller, like Colin Trevorrow and Ryan Johnson and guys who are the smaller films get a shot at the big time too. But I just think because Godzilla didn't deliver the way that the first one could have, that I think for a second one you need more of a hired gun. I'm usually against the hired gun mentality. I just think for this one to a smaller director who's trying to break out there, that's just for me. Like Jeff Nichols. I want to see Jeff Nichols do something kind of really big.
Can you imagine how much fun it's got to be to go to work? Like kiss the, kiss your mate goodbye, say, hey, okay, kids, have a good day at school. Daddy's going to go off and be in a writer's room to write Godzilla versus King Kong stuff.
It's funny. I did have a friend of mine this weekend. We were talking about that there's going to be a King Kong versus Godzilla movie, and he's like, well, doesn't that just kind of ruin King Kong? Because traditionally King Kong dies at the end of King Kong. Guess that ain't happening. All right, what's next?
According to a report from THR, Chris Pine has joined the cast of director Ava DuVernay's A Wrinkle in Time. The outlet says Pine will be playing the part of Mr. Murray, father to Storm Reed's Meg, and husband to Gugu Mbatha-Raw's Dr. Kate Murray. The lineup for the novel adaptation also includes Oprah Winfrey, Mindy Kaling, and Reese Witherspoon. Christian, buyers sell Chris Pine in A Wrinkle in Time.
I'm going to buy Chris Pine in Wrinkle in Time because, look, listen, and I just rhymed. I think, for me, we had this conversation the other day about Chris Pine is a guy that I think that sometimes because he's just like this good-looking dude, you take away that there's a lot of talent there, man. I mean, I didn't like Finest Hours at all, but I thought he was fun. He was good in the movie. I thought that his best work to date is Higher Hell Water.
Absolutely.
I mean, he invests himself inside that movie. You see a different Chris Pine. You forget that it's Chris Pine. You believe, and a lot of that is also he's a guy that picks off the talent he's working with, and Ben Foster gives the best.
He'll elevate everybody he works with.
Absolutely, but it's the good actors that can elevate, and Chris Pine certainly did that. So by putting him in this movie and having him work with a talent like Ava DuVernay, who I'm a huge fan of, and I think that she is someone that I'm so glad she's getting this platform. Just exactly what we were just talking about in the last story here. Someone who has proven themselves in the smaller, the dramas, and now getting a shot at this big movie and having a talent working with Chris Pine and Ava DuVernay. I love this. I think it's a good choice.
What do you think?
I'm going to buy it as well because Chris Pine is becoming that dark horse in the conversation that we had last week where it's like, who's the best Chris in Hollywood? Is it Chris Hemsworth, Evans? Yep. I always go with Chris Pratt, but Chris Pine is making a really strong case for his name to be at the top of that list because, as Christian said, I think he's really good at fitting himself into whatever tone that the movie he's starring in provides. So with Hell or High Water is a different Chris Pratt or different Chris Pine that we ever saw before. Star Trek, he was able to become Captain Kirk without doing a Shatner impression. There's a smaller movie that he was in with Elizabeth Banks called People Like Us that showed that he has really good dramatic chops as well. He can combine all that stuff in a movie like this that is going to have a lot of different styles to it. So it's an exciting move for me, even more so because he's playing the father of a character named Meg. So John, do you think he'll take a cue from Family Guy and say, shut up, Meg?
I will walk out of the theater if he doesn't. You know, Chris, I would have sold this a while ago because while I like Chris Pine as Captain Kirk, I've enjoyed his portrayal as Captain Kirk. I'll be honest with you, I haven't enjoyed him in a lot else up to a point. Then out comes Horrible Bosses 2, which is not as good as the original, but he killed it.
Yeah.
Like, the movie isn't all that great, but he absolutely killed it. And then comes Hell or High Water. And it's like, okay, now I see it.
Right.
Now, like, maybe he's just evolved and he's grown and now he is that good now and he wasn't before. I don't know. Because I would have looked at the story and say, man, he's going to get overshadowed way too much. He's out of his class. When you look at the other people in this movie, I would think he's out of his depth in this. But now that I've seen Hell or High Water, I'm like, nope, now I got to buy it. So yeah, for me, it's a buy. All right, what's next?
Variety reports that Jennifer Lawrence will star in a biopic about famous jazz-age socialite Zelda Fitzgerald, with Ron Howard directing the movie entitled Zelda. The pic follows Fitzgerald, who, after marrying famed author F. Scott Fitzgerald, tries to find her own voice in the jazz music scene as her husband rises through the ranks of great American novelists. No release date has been set. Mark Barr saw Jennifer Lawrence teaming with Ron Howard in the Zelda Fitzgerald biopic.
Ashley, you had me at jazz era socialite. I mean, this is what you want to see. You want to see roaring 20s and Jennifer Lawrence together. She just screams that vibe to me. I really think she can knock this role out of the park. It's going to be a cool backstory between Zelda and F. Scott Fitzgerald. I think that she is one of those people, you can put her in a number of roles, but unlike some of the bigger profile ones we've seen recently where we've been critical of her, I think that this could be Jennifer Lawrence committing to a role that she wants to play. So I'm excited to see her be Zelda.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to buy this too, because I've been looking for a movie like this for Ron Howard to direct for a while now. Because Ron Howard, I think a really strong argument could be made that he's one of the top 3 best working directors for a long time. Hasn't fallen into that category for a while, and I think this is the type of movie that could really spark that. So for me, it's a buy.
It's a big buy for me also, and the thing is, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I think a reason why he's not looked upon better than he is because some of the great movies that he has done did terribly in the box office. Rush and Cinderella Man. Both of those movies, great movies.
I love Cinderella Man.
Underperformed. Both.
But it was a while ago. Cinderella Man was a while ago.
Well, it was also released in the summertime, which was a disaster. It was a silly move. But and bringing up Cinderella Man, he's played in this time period before. He knows this time period. And I think it's very easy to pick on Jennifer Lawrence right now because she's overexposed. Some people would say, and that we didn't love her in X-Men Apocalypse and thought that maybe she phoned it in.
I don't think she loved her in X-Men Apocalypse.
I didn't mind her in this, but I understood what people were saying. But anyway, and it seems like every Oscar season people feel like, oh, she just got nominated again for Joy. Shouldn't have been nominated for that movie. But again, this is a good role for her, because whatever you want to say about Jennifer Lawrence, whether you think she's overexposed or not, she is a great actress.
World class.
Winner's bone. That was her coming out party saying, hey, look at me, I'm this brand new talent, and there's a reason she is where she is. And she also works really well with top tier directors. So let's put them together. Let's put them in this time period. And I bet you're going to hear about it at Oscar time the year later it comes out.
By the way, just a quick note. So somebody said they thought Ouija was a Blumhouse production. I said I thought it was a Hasbro production. Turns out it is a Hasbro and Blumhouse production.
Okay, so we're both.
They are both there. So, but let me ask you this question before we move on to the next topic. This is a tough one. I'm going to want to ask Dennis this too. Favorite Ron Howard directed film?
Oh, man.
Splash.
I
love Splash.
I still have never
classic.
seen Splash. It's
Oh,
a dark
man.
spot in
What?
my
Really?
career. I know,
You
it's
gotta
terrible.
watch
I
it.
love Tom Hanks. I love John Candy.
Hey, Rodney.
I think it's impossible to have anything at number 1 other than Apollo 13.
I think it is impossible if anything at number 1 other than Backdraft.
Yeah.
Backdraft.
What,
Willow's pretty good,
Dennis,
too.
favorite Ron Howard movie?
Cinderella Man.
I love Cinderella Man.
It's really good.
So good. All right, guys, what's next?
The Marvel Cinematic Universe has been designed as one big playground, but it hasn't really worked out that way when it comes to their movie and television universes. During the recent press junket for Doctor Strange, Collider's own Steve Weintraub asked Marvel head Kevin Feige when we might see some crossover between the Netflix series and the Marvel movies. Feige said, I think it's extremely impressive what Netflix has done, and it will be the same answer I always give, which is it all depends on timing. It all depends on how to do it, because I don't think what anybody wants to do is have such important characters show up for 1 second. John Byer saw the Netflix heroes ever appearing in Avengers Infinity War.
Oh, wow. On the question, would I buy or sell them ever showing up in Infinity War, I will sell it. I don't think they're going to show up. I've said that from the beginning. I don't think they will. Now, there's a difference between showing up and tiny cameo, like somebody looking over their shoulder to see something off in the distance. Anything's possible there. That's absolutely possible. But I completely buy Kevin Feige's comments here. Kevin Feige is also a great diplomat. He knows what to say and how to say it. And this basically is him saying, no, the Netflix characters are not showing up in our movies. And then he just gave you a good reason to protect himself as to why. Because we don't want to, these are too important, these characters, to just show up for a second. I believe, personally, bottom line is, it's the Perlmutter and Kevin Feige divide.
Yeah.
Perlmutter is in charge of the Netflix series. Perlmutter, who Feige used to work for, is the guy who has final say what happens over those characters. Well, the final say is Bob Iger. Let's not fool ourselves. But the way he's got it structured right now, and I just don't see them wanting to play in each other's sandboxes. And for me personally, I like it. I've said this before. I love what Netflix is doing with their series right now. I love it. I love the street level feel of it. I love that you could do Luke Cage. It's about him cleaning up drug dealers and crime and corruption in his neighborhood, in his town. I love that. I think you lose a part of the soul of the Netflix Defenders if suddenly they go off to fight side by side with the Avengers against Thanos and then try to go back and try to stop some mean street thug from stalking a neighborhood girl, which in the Netflix universe right now feels important. And I think you neuter that if you suddenly put them in with the Avengers. Keep them separate. I mean, as far as I'm concerned right now, I think Kevin Feige plans on keeping them separate. I think the relationship between him and Perlmutter will prevent them from crossing them over too much, but a cameo is always possible. I don't know, Kristian, you hear these comments. What do you make of them?
Well, first of all, I mean, as far as do I think they'll be in it, because to be clear, Infinity War it was going to be Infinity War 1 and 2, and that's no longer the case anymore, right? So it's just going to be, what do we know what the second Avengers is?
I just refer to them as Avengers 3 and 4 at this point.
I think that those movies, the untitled ones, that's where you got a shot if it's going to happen. I think there's too much to focus in on the first one, whether that's Captain Marvel they got to put in there, and whether or not they're going to put Spider-Man in there and these other ones to try to fit in, and don't just assume that everyone who watches the Avengers movies or who watches the movies watches the Netflix series.
They don't.
Because the other thing is that you'd have to do in that movie, you couldn't just throw them in there. It would be a nice, like you're saying, the cameo is an Easter egg to those people who are watching. But as far as giving them integral parts of something to do in the story, you'd have to do it in a way that's explaining to the audience that's not familiar with the series who these people are. That takes up more time of the story. But I think you can do that and incorporate them in the story down the line. I do think that there's a way to do it, to take those kind of more simplistic, but the more realistic problems that these heroes are going through in the Netflix series and incorporate them down the line in other movies. I think that you can do it. I think that if Perlmutter, and I also think that there's other people around the line that, whether it's a Bob Iger, if there's one person that could take two people like Perlmutter and Feige and sit them in a room and go, let's just figure this out for this one, guys. I think that that's possible, and I think eventually we will see those characters.
You know how Iger does that, and says, "You work this out, go." And that's it.
Yeah. So for me, I think that it will happen, but I don't think it'll happen in the first one.
What do you think, Mark? Well, actually, the two-part question. Let me put it to you: do you buy or sell that we could see not just single-shot cameos? Do you buy or sell that we could see any of these Netflix characters in Infinity War? And then do you buy or sell Feige's comments?
I'll start with the latter question. I buy Kevin Feige's comments because they're a clear indication that my good friend Kevin watches us on Movie Talk, because we've said along the same things where you shouldn't have these heroes make a quick cameo. So I'm going to sell the fact that they are in Infinity War at all, because not just because of these comments, but also because I'm not sure it makes sense for the story that they're already creating. I'm not going to sell that we'll never see them in an Avengers movie or one of these films down the road where you have a lot of heroes uniting for one cause. I just don't think it's going to happen in Infinity War. And I think you could clone Kevin Feige and make him and his clone the head of Netflix too, and I still don't think you'd see those characters because, like you said, they want to treat them with respect, and it lessens the cause of what they're doing on Netflix if you're like, oh, you know what, now we're going to take you away from what your mission was or whatever you're doing in your last season so you can fight this thing where we have people who are equipped to do that. I don't think it works in Infinity War. I don't think you're going to see him in either Infinity War, to be honest with you. I don't think that either in 3 or 4 you're going to see the Netflix characters participate. But you can never say never with these kind of things.
Yeah, Kevin Feige has told me that he watches Movie Talk and that he is a big fan of Mark Ellis.
We're big friends. We've taken at least one selfie together.
One of those two statements I just said is a lie. Can you guess which one?
Neither. No. I sell both of those things being
Absolutely. Okay, listen, guys. We do this show live, which means at the end of each show, we like to save a little bit of time to take your live Twitter questions. How do you get a question on? It's simple. Jump on Twitter and make sure you're following us on Twitter at Collider Video and start firing in your questions. We're going to save a few minutes at the end of the show, and Wendy will pick out some of your questions. I also want to remind you that Movie Talk is not the only show on Collider Video today. A little bit later today at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, that's 8 p.m. Eastern, TV Talk, the newest episode of TV Talk, will drop. Keep your eyes open for that. Also, we have a brand new Crash crash course video going up today about a little guy named Deathstroke. Keep your eyes open. That will drop a little bit later this afternoon. Also, there's a little video dropping tomorrow. The Movie Trivia Schmodown has tag team champions that they just might be sitting at this table with me. Woohoo! And they finally get a chance to defend those titles tomorrow against Team Top 10. Here's a little sneak peek.
If you smell what the schmoes are cooking. The winners and new team champions, Team Schmoes! What you gonna do when Top 10 runs wild on you? And your winner, Team
Title shot happens tomorrow here on Collider Video. Keep your eyes open for that. It is going to be, as my good friend JR would say, a slobber knocker. A couple other quick things. Hey, Walking Dead came back yesterday, and we've picked up our Walking Dead recap show. The first episode of this season went up last night. You can find it on our main page on our YouTube channel. Go and check that out. Also, I want to let you guys who live in the Los Angeles area know the Los Angeles Comic-Con, formerly known as Kamikaze, happens on the weekend of October 29th. And on Saturday, October 29th, at the LA Comic-Con, there is going to be a Heroes panel from 1 p.m. to roughly 2:30. And also there's going to be a Schmodown, Movie Trivia Schmodown panel at 5 p.m. From 5 to 6 p.m. And I also want to let you know that we are going to be having a Collider Video meet and greet that Saturday night at 7 p.m. at the Lux Hotel Bar up on the second floor. Go and check that out. You can look. It's right across from the convention center. It's easy to find. So try to come down and join us for that if you live in the LA area. All right, it's time for us to get to our mailbag today. So, Ashley, what do we have?
Darth Impact writes, "Hey crew, I love all your stuff and I've been a fan for about 5 years now. My question is, with the casting of Zendaya as the possible new Mary Jane, are we as a society so stuck in a state of ignorance that we can't cast a character in a different race without some backlash?"
Look, that does frustrate me a little bit, I'll say, because I thought Michael Clark Duncan was a badass Kingpin. I liked the new Johnny Storm, even though I did not like the movie Johnny Storm was in, and all that kind of stuff. But to be fair to a degree to the people who have a problem with it, remember that backlash that we saw with Zendaya, you got a hardcore group of people out there who are not necessarily objecting. Look, there are some brain dead idiots for sure, but I think there's a lot of the people out there who do object to stuff like that would object over any changes to the characters they already know and love. For example, a lot of people forget this. When Hugh Jackman was cast as Wolverine, there were that was one big one. A lot of people hated that idea. And it wasn't because he was white, and it wasn't because he was Australian. It was because he's just physically not the right type. Wolverine's supposed to be, like, I think 5 feet tall, maybe 4'11" or something like that. He's supposed to be a tiny little guy. Hugh Jackman is not a tiny little guy. A lot of times when you get that type of objection from people, like I said, sometimes it's just brain dead idiots. But sometimes it's just people who are purists when it comes to their comic book characters. So they can get mad, understandably so. They can get mad for the wrong hair color. They get mad for the wrong height. They can get mad for the wrong body size. They could get mad for the wrong race. But it doesn't necessarily mean there's a nefarious reason behind them being upset. Sometimes it's just because they're a hardcore fan of the character and they were going to object to any differences or changes made to it. And then you get some people who object for nefariously bad reasons. But I know, Kristian, how do you respond to that?
I agree with you 100%. Yes, there are morons that just like right away, oh, black actress, I hate this. That will happen. But then there's other people, like you said, that are just so passionate about the character and don't want to see any changes to it whatsoever, and they voice their opinions on it. And a lot of times, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're wrong for feeling that way, but they can. There are some people that feel that way that could be swayed by the performance and go, okay, maybe I wasn't so thrilled by the idea, but they proved me wrong. A lot of people, not so much that they changed the character, but Heath Ledger is a great example. As just people right away saying that's not the guy,
the
that's
wrong
not my
guy.
Joker, and now there's a majority of people that every time anyone even talks about the Joker, well, it doesn't hold up to Heath Ledger. So there's things that change all the time, but I also don't want there is definitely a part out there of people being just flat out racist. There is. It's out there for sure. But I do think that there's a mixture of both. There's a mixture of passionate fans and ignorance.
The problem is you just notice it more on social media now because everybody has a voice. Literally everybody has a voice. So you're going to get a lot of dissenting opinions regardless of what the news is that comes out. What's inspiring about this is that it does prove that either something like art or sports can impact how we feel about things in society. So when you have a progressive move, like if Zendaya is playing Mary Jane, I think that's awesome. And it also shows that there's going to be a lot of people that support that decision. But as you saw with something as recent as the Ghostbusters backlash, which was not all about the quality of the trailer or whether they thought the movie looked good. A lot of it was simply because people did not want to accept that their beloved Ghostbusters were going to be played by women instead of men. I think it's important to have these conversations, and I think it's great that something we get to talk about on an almost daily basis helps spur those on.
All right, what's next?
Jesse Bowers writes, "Hey Collider crew, I'm a big fan of the show since the AMC days and happy to see John Campea hosting again. My question is, now that AT&T is buying Warner Brothers / DC Entertainment, how this merger affects the upcoming DC movie? Thanks and keep up the great work."
Yeah, I think
great.
that picture Ray put together is awesome. And by the way, Wendy is very upset that in our Ron Howard question we didn't say Willow. She's
You're all
very.
I said Willow.
Did you say Willow? I did not hear you
Sorry,
say Willow.
Mark. You're still my favorite.
I'm here for you.
Yeah, that has been a big thing. It was front page on CNN. The AT&T now it still has to get approval, but it looks like AT&T is buying Time Warner. They're going to be charged. Who knows how much difference there's going to be? All I can do is tell you two examples of big corporate takeovers that I have been involved with and what changes they made. Some of you may remember Collider Movie Talk used to be called AMC Movie Talk. And a few years into our tenure over there, we found out that a giant Chinese company had bought AMC. And so, like anybody who's part of a company that has just been taken over, like we started looking at each other like, well, how's this going to affect us?
Right.
Turns out it didn't affect us at all. They didn't change. The company that came and took us over changed nothing. Our board stayed the same. Our CEO stayed the same. Everything at Movie Talk and AMC Movie News at the time stayed exactly the same, and they never got involved. They just now owned us. It's public information now, so I'm not giving anything away. Our company now, Complex Media, we were recently purchased by Verizon. I mean, we're owned by Verizon now. And I got to say, while there have been some minor things that we've noticed on our level, it hasn't really had giant rippling effects to us. My assumption at this point, and it is only an assumption, what AT&T is really interested in with Time Warner is their television deals. I think that's their main goal here. Also, I mean, there's Time Warner is a big internet service provider, so that goes right to AT&T's core business as well. I really don't think we're going to see much difference at all at this point when it comes to Warner Brothers. What's going to happen to Warner Brothers? What's going to happen to their film slate? What's going to happen to their DC properties? Honestly, at this point, I don't think we're going to notice one thing change. I don't think AT&T is going to look to get involved with it at all. I don't know. Kristian, what do you think?
I don't think you're going to know. It's just headlines. It's the partnership deals. I don't think you're going to hear. I don't think there's going to be a big change whatsoever because now, if they started saying, "Hey, we're replacing Greg Silverman, who runs Warner Brothers, and this person and that person," they start making all these creative changes inside their the studio system. And AT&T seems to be responsible for that, which I can't imagine a million years that would happen. Then something will change, but nothing's going to happen. It's going to be like it was yesterday.
Oh, you poor bastards! You guys don't think that Batman's secret line to Alfred is not going to be an AT&T phone
right.
now?
Yeah.
You're out of your minds. No, I don't think it's going to affect the movies at all. The thing that makes me nervous is that they bought Time Warner. Now they have DirecTV. What's that going to do to my NFL Sunday ticket package? Is it going to be more expensive? Is it going to be less expensive? Just make sure I can still watch football on Sundays, and I'm good with whatever you want.
Now, some people in the chat board are rightfully bringing up an example, saying, well, Disney bought Marvel,
Right.
and they made changes. Absolutely they did. But remember, you're talking about two companies that had the same core business. Like Disney is a movie-making company.
Right.
They have a lot of other branches, but their core business is they're Disney films, Disney motion pictures. And that was what Marvel was as well. Marvel Studios at the time, that's what they were as well. So, of course, those things had more of a direct influence over them, absolutely. But like I said, in this situation, filmmaking is not AT&T's core business. And I really don't think they're all that concerned about it. I think they're probably going to let sleeping dogs lie when it comes to that. All right, guys, I said we'd save a little bit of time at the end of the show, take some of your live Twitter questions, and we're going to do that right now. Once again, make sure you're following us on Twitter at Collider Video. Send them in, and Wendy's going to pick some out. So, Wendy, what do we got?
All right, the first one comes from Adam Rosen, and he says, will Tim Miller's visual effects studio also not work on Deadpool 2?
To be honest with you, I didn't know that the visual effects studio, well, look, let's call it this. Big visual effects movies these days, they have about 20 visual effects companies because the visual effects that go into one of these big motion pictures, no one company can handle, not even ILM. So when you come out of a movie like, for instance, when you go see Doctor Strange, you watch the credits, ILM comes up. But then another visual effects company comes up, and another, and another, and another. I used to actually work in the visual effects industry, and what our business thrived on was not a studio like Warner Brothers or Marvel coming to us and giving us a contract. No, what we thrived on was a giant visual effects company getting the contract and then having to sub out some of the work on that contract to smaller companies like us. So when we worked on films like Spy Kids 2, or when we worked on films like The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and we worked on films like Sin City, it wasn't the studio that contracted us, it was subcontracted. So I don't know if Tim's company was the big lead visual effects company. I have a feeling it wasn't. So and just because they have a creative difference, I don't see why they would let it affect their business involvement at all. Mark, what do you think?
Well, if it was, then that means every effect shot you see with Cable and Deadpool 2, they're going to put in Kyle Chandler's face over it. You could be like, oh, wait, that's how they wanted to do it. I don't see any real problem if Tim Miller's effects company was going to continue to work on Deadpool 2. It wouldn't surprise me if they upgraded the effects in general on Deadpool 2. I thought they were great in Deadpool, but maybe with a bigger budget comes a different effects company.
No, I don't think that they would do that. That's probably part of the deal. It's like, okay, fine, I'm gonna step off the project here, keep the visual effects in place, and move on to another day.
All right, what's next?
Jonathan G. Ross says, think it's good or bad that George Lucas isn't officially involved with Indy 5? Thanks.
Yeah, so a story broke earlier that Indiana Jones, that George Lucas is not going to have any involvement in Indiana Jones 5, to which my reply is, didn't we know that? Like, he sold the company. So I think there was a possibility. I guess some people think there was a possibility maybe George will still be involved, but I don't see why Disney would want him involved at all, especially after Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So, to me, it's a non-story. I mean, it just makes sense. What do you think, Kristian?
It's exactly what I was going to say. To quote you, it's a non-story. It is something that because when he sold off the company, he's not involved in Star Wars. When he said, hey, I have some ideas for Episode 7. No thanks. And so the same thing's going to happen with Indiana Jones. It's just he sold it. It's not his anymore. We knew it wasn't going to be. I don't think anybody that's really been following this stuff thought that George Lucas would be involved. It's just clarification again to say, hey, don't worry, we're not getting Crystal Skull. I don't know, maybe that's what it is. But I don't think anybody at all is shocked by this, and I'm curious if anybody in the chat room is.
No, I'm not shocked, but to be fair, he didn't just say, oh, I have some ideas for Episode 7, like, oh, we don't want them. He did get a chance to sit down and pitch those ideas. So I think it would have made sense if he sat down with his best friend Steven Spielberg and was like, hey, here's my ideas for Indiana Jones if you want to take them. And if that's not even happening, then that does surprise me a little bit that George Lucas doesn't at least want to talk to his good buddy and say, I thought maybe we have him get chased by a giant boulder in this one or something like that, or maybe we bring back the spiders from Crystal Skull, something like that. But it doesn't surprise me that George Lucas is not going to be involved in the new movie. I just thought maybe creatively he might have some discussions with some people there.
But isn't that a slippery slope, though? If you start, because George Lucas
it's a very slippery slope.
He's not the type of guy that is going to come into one meeting, give an idea, and then thanks a lot, take off. He's going to be there, and if you give one idea, he's going to give you a million more. And he's an idea guy. He is a great idea guy, and it comes up. It's the dialogue and other things that having George Lucas involved in a story is not a bad thing at all. No matter what you think of the prequels or what you think about Crystal Skull, his ideas, his mind, some of the best storytelling, one of the best storytelling minds of all time. So having him involved wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. It'd be a great thing. But I just think you sell something, you step back, and it's over.
He gets bruised really easily, too. So if he didn't like the fact that nobody took his story ideas for Star Wars, he probably doesn't want to go through that experience again with Indiana Jones.
Well, I don't think he's going to be involved in any official capacity whatsoever. However, having said that, we just did a story the other day about how J.J. Abrams, for one of the scenes in The Force Awakens, gave his buddy Ava DuVernay a call and say, hey, what do you think about this? And get some ideas. We were lucky enough to be at the Force Awakens world premiere, and who was there? George Lucas and Steven Spielberg together, walking the carpet together, sitting down, like talking about how they've been best friends for decades. I would be shocked. I mean, I don't think there's any realm of possibility that at some point Steven isn't on the phone with George. Hey George, I'm doing this. What do you think about that? Do you think that would be cool? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, but on any sort of official level, absolutely
Yeah,
not.
but it's also like, hey, I'm dating the girl that you used to date. What is she like in the bedroom?
What is she like?
And would you like to come over for dinner?
Yeah.
All right, let's take two more.
Okay, Gregory James writes, what do you guys think about Neil Blomkamp's The Escape with Clive Owen back behind the BMW?
Man, I'm in a bad place with Neil Blomkamp right now. I have not liked his last couple of movies at all, and I'm starting to wonder if District 9 was a one-hit wonder, because he doesn't seem to be able to get out of that. I mean, everything he's done since completely feels like that. But hey, I'm curious. I thought the features for it have looked really kind of cool, so I'm curious to watch it and get a feel for it. But my first reaction isn't so great. What do you think, Mark?
I believe in the dude, and I want to see him have a great comeback, and he kind of needs it after Chappie. So I think this is a nice thing for him in the meantime while we wait for Alien, which will come out in 30 years.
Yeah, let's see. I mean, I am a big District 9 fan. I haven't liked anything else since Elysium was fine, but not great. And Chappie, come on.
No, I hate Chappie, but I love Elysium.
I know you
I
did,
hated
but
Elysium.
I didn't like it. But anyway, the point is, I think that he is a talented filmmaker. He's another guy that I would like to see. All three of his movies so far have been movies that he has originally done by himself, and they're all these kind of message films. I want to see him do something else. I'm very excited to see his version of Alien. I want to see what he does with other things that are not just his own original stuff. I'm curious. Maybe that's what has been holding him back. Not to say that he just has to do studio movies, but maybe that he will thrive in something like that.
Remember, he was supposed to do the Halo movie.
Yeah.
And like
Before
after District 9 came out, everybody's like, "Oh, why didn't that happen?"
Right.
Since Elysium and Chappie, everybody's like, "Whew,
Right.
thank God that didn't happen."
Yeah.
All right, last question of the day.
Last one comes from Alex Bissell, and he says, I don't know if it's been asked yet, but what do you think the Han Solo movie will be called?
Solo.
Oh,
Solo.
I think that's a good title for it, but I don't think that's what they'll do.
Okay.
But I like your idea. Solo just sounds
Get it.
good.
It's the
Sounds
brand.
great.
Solo, a Star Wars story. So those.
Oh,
I
no,
don't
you're
want
right.
it.
You are right.
I don't want it to be that. I like the anthology thing, but it's going to be Solo, a Star Wars story.
Yeah, you're right, and that's awful.
I think it's going to be called Dude, Where's My Falcon?
Works the first time every time. All right, guys, that'll do it for us for this installment of Collider Movie Talk. Thank you so much for joining us. Listen, don't forget, most important part of this show is not what we have to say, it's what you have to say. Jump into the comment section, get the conversation going, leave your thoughts on all the topics that we discussed here today. I want to thank the guys sitting at the table with me. First of all, sitting over there, Kristian Harloff. Kristian, where can people find you?
You can find me at Kristian Harloff, Twitter and Instagram. You can find me defending the titles with this gentleman tomorrow against Top 10 on the Movie Trivia Schmodown, and then every Thursday, Collider Jedi Council.
Right beside him, Mr. Mark Ellis.
At Mark Ellis Live, and thank you to everybody who supported both myself, Baby Carrots, and the Outlaw John Roca in Friday's match. It was a barn burner, came down to the wire. Thank you guys for checking it out, and make sure you guys tune in tomorrow to watch Kristian and I kick the hell out of Team Top 10. Looking forward to another belt retention.
Over there, we got Ashley Mova.
Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Ashley Mova. Happy Monday, guys.
And Wendy Lee.
Some people in the chat says the Solo movie should be called Nerve Herder.
Not bad. Nerf Herder, a Star Wars story.
Or you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat at Wendy Lee Zaney.
And you guys can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, simply at John Campea. Make sure you subscribe to Comic-Con HQ for mine and John Schnepp's show. Film HQ airs every Saturday. That'll do it for us, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. And until next time, bye-bye.
Hey guys, if you like this video, click the thumbs up button. Also, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It'll help you stay up to date with everything we've got going on here at Collider.